talk about the leadership and legacy of an undivided heart. Boy, it's a word that's been burning in my heart for a while. Now, leadership. For our purposes today, leadership is influence, right? John Maxwell says leadership is not about titles, position, or flow charts. It is about one life influencing another life. Legacy, what you leave behind after you're gone, right? Legacy. Pericles has a great quote. I looked it up. What you leave behind is not what is engraved in stone mountains. It is what is woven into the hearts of others. So the leadership and legacy of an undivided heart. Now, this for me is a lighthouse message. You know what a lighthouse message is? It's a beacon. It's a destination. It's an aspiration. It's a message that I go, I want that. I want to be that. I've been walking with the Lord for 35 years now, and this is still my lighthouse message. And I hope after today, I hope it's yours. Come on. There's impartation going on today too. So today we're going to talk about the life of Caleb. As in Caleb, the infamous, or in the words of the three amigos, more than famous, Joshua, and all the old people laugh because we know that movie, Joshua and Caleb and the 12 spies, right? But before we start off, I got to tell you, the name, there's meaning in a name, right? So the name Caleb means dog. Dog. That's what it means. But there is a Hebrew inference that means raging with canine madness. Okay, look to the person next to you and say, I am raging with canine madness. It's a good thing, I promise you. I promise you. Now, Caleb, he wasn't the top dog. He wasn't the main event. He wasn't the main character. He wasn't the number one position. But Caleb, 6 times in the Bible, it is said of him that he followed the Lord wholeheartedly, which means he had what? An undivided heart. It is said of him that he had a different spirit. And this was the legacy and the leadership of Caleb. This, we're going to see today, is what was transmitted into future generations. And we're going to see how that happened today. Now, Caleb, at the end of his life, well, it's the end of his life, but not really. So he sums up his life like this in the book of Joshua, chapter 14. I'm going to start at verse 7. I think I gave you more scriptures in the app and in our study notes, but I'm going to start at verse 7 because we got a lot to cover. Caleb is speaking. He says, I was 40 years old when Moses, the servant of the Lord, sent me from Kadesh Barnea to explore the land. And I brought him back a report according to my convictions. According to the convictions of my heart. But my fellow Israelites who went up with me made the hearts of the people melt in fear. I, however, followed the Lord my God wholeheartedly. So on that day, Moses swore to me, check this out. The land on which your feet have walked will be your inheritance and that of your children forever, because you have followed the Lord, my God, wholeheartedly. Okay, this is not simply where he put his feet, but how he did it. The places where you put your feet and the way that you do it will become your legacy. And this is what you will pass on to the people in your life that you influence or that you lead. We are in unprecedented times. If you are a parent or a grandma, or even if you are a young person, you're wondering if the next generation has what it takes. We never expected to face 2020. I don't know if we knew we had what it took, but we did. I am here to tell you that we do. However, you have influence. And what we do today is going to influence how the next generation leads and lives and experiences victory in years to come. And that is why it's so important. So Caleb in his life, he shows 4 leadership traits that stem from his undivided heart. They're a result that I personally really love. They're values that I have. The first one is conviction. He gave a report as to the conviction of his heart, right? The second is courage. The third is consistency. And the fourth is confidence. Now, I am going to attempt to do something today. I am going to tell the backstory of the life of Caleb, and I think I can do it in 3 minutes or less. Ready? Go. So Caleb was an Israelite. He was from the tribe of Judah. He was born during the time when the Israelites were in Egypt. Actually, during that time, Moses had just been exiled into the land of Midian. Moses was there for 40 years while Caleb grew up. Now he's a full-grown man. Now he gets to see Moses come on back, and he gets to go to Pharaoh, and he tells Pharaoh, hey, God says you're supposed to let my people go. So Caleb actually gets to experience things like frogs and gnats and locusts, and that night when everything was dark except in his house. Well, then he also gets to paint the doorposts of his house with blood. And he gets to watch the spirit of death roll over, and he gets to be a part of the very first Passover. Well, Pharaoh had had enough, so he said, get out of town. So Caleb packs up his whole entire family, and he heads out back to the promised land. Well, Pharaoh goes, oh, that was a bad idea, so I think I'm going to change my mind. So Caleb gets trapped between the Egyptian army and the Red Sea, and then with his eyes, he gets to watch the Red Sea part, and with his feet, he gets to walk across on dry land. When he gets to the other side, he turns around, and guess what he gets to watch? He gets to watch Pharaoh's army completely defeated as the waters come over and they cover them up. Then he sets out with all of his, million or so people. Everybody argues about that. I don't care. It was a lot of people. So they go to Mount Sinai and they camp at the bottom of Mount Sinai, and they watch Moses go up for 40 days, right? He does that actually twice. So Moses goes up and they get to watch the cloud. They hear the thunder. They hear all the glory, right? They've already had a pillar of fire and a cloud. And so they actually get to go to the mountain and they get to hear the voice of God. So during that time, they receive the law, they receive the instructions for the tabernacle, and then they get to watch as it's finished because the Spirit of God comes down and glory fills the place. And then there's a cloud and then there's a pillar of fire. And because he's from the tribe of Judah, he goes first when the cloud moves. Well, eventually, he ate quail. He ate manna. He drank water from a rock. He watched the Amalekites get totally defeated. So they get to the border of the promised land, and God tells Moses, hey, go to each tribe, pick out the bravest, pick out the leader one. So, and they're going to go spy the land. So Caleb is one of 74,000 men of Judah, and he is singled out for being the leader of that tribe. Maybe it was the fact that he raged with canine madness. I don't know. But anyways, he goes into the promised land, and he goes with 11 of his peers, and they come back. They're there for 40 days. So they come back and they go, hey, land is good, but there's people there. There's people there. I don't know why that was surprising to 10 of them, but it was. So they go, but there's milk, there's honey, and oh, by the way, there's grapes. Took 2 of us to bring it all the way back. But guess who eats giant fruit? Giant people. So anyways, the spies did not disagree on what they saw, but they totally disagreed on how it meant. And that is where we start our story. Woo! Backstory. So the spies gave a report according to the conviction of their heart. Caleb did it. We read it. They all did it. The difference was that the conviction of Caleb's heart was wholeheartedly following after God. Big difference. Joshua and Caleb bring a much different report of what they saw. And based on what they saw, they influenced the people around them. So the number one thing, conviction, the number one thing we learned from Caleb. Wow. I'm going to paraphrase. In Numbers chapter 13, the 10 spies, they talk first, and they get to say their report. And among other things, they say, oh my gosh, the people were so big. There's the Jebusites and the Canaanites and the Amorites and all these people. There's people in the land. Oh my gosh, what did you expect? There's people in the land, right? And oh my gosh, there's giants. We felt like grasshoppers. We are so small. It says they made the hearts of the people melt. Caleb, he reminds me of my husband. Caleb is a man, a few words. I want you to look at Numbers 13, verse 30. It says, then Caleb silenced the people. Okay, this is a lot of people. This isn't just 6 people, right? This is a lot of people. And Caleb says, we should go up and take possession of the land. For we can certainly do it. And I believe he said that, raging with canine madness. We should go up and take the land. We can do it. Raging with, that's all he says. That's all, that's it. There's no more. They go on to say, you know, they're so big, the giants, there's fortified walls. The cities are crazy. We should not do this. And oh, by the way, I'm going to tell you, if only we had died in Egypt. And then they start to spiral. They're spiraling into a place that isn't good. And they're like, why is the Lord bringing us out here just to kill us? The Lord's not going to take care of us. He's going to lead us in there. He's going to trick us, right? Is basically what they're saying. He's like, they're going to take our wives and children. Oh my gosh, they're going to totally plunder. They're going to take everything we have. We are doomed. Wouldn't it be better for us to go back and be a slave? Let's choose different leaders. Sometimes people, when they're scared, they look for leaders who are going to lead you backwards into comfort and people who are going to lead you forward into promise. Let me say that again. Sometimes when people are scared, they look for leaders that are going to lead them backward into comfort rather than leading them forward into progress. And I could stay and preach on that all day, but we got to talk about the life of Caleb. So anyways, oh, I love this. One of my favorite people, Audrey Palomares, works with our youth. She says, are you looking for comfort or following your commission? Young people, I love them. Oh my gosh. So anyways, Caleb and Joshua are unmoved. The people are ganging up. In fact, it's getting pretty dangerous, right? But they are taking their stand. So they respond to that. Numbers 14. I'm going to start in verse 8. If the Lord is pleased with us, he will lead us into the land flowing with milk and honey, and he will give it to us. Only do not rebel against the Lord. Do not be afraid of the people of the land, because we will devour them. Raging with canine madness. Their protection is gone, but the Lord is with us. Do not be afraid of them. I'm going to summarize. Caleb's like, yeah, they're big. Yeah, whatever. That's scary. But God's presence is a game changer. God's presence is a game changer. You're looking at some scary stuff. I want to tell you, God's presence is a game changer. The 10 spies and the people, they're not questioning God's ability. They have just spent 2 years. It took 2 years to get to this place, by the way. 2 years, and they have seen, heard, experienced, and tasted God's power. What they are questioning is his care and his devotion. He let us out here to kill us. He's not going to take care of us. This is a joke. We need to go back. Caleb and Joshua understood. He's like, if God is with us, he's pleased with us, he's never going to do it, because we know he can. I'm just going to tell you that he will. So God's not happy with them because they're questioning his devotion and his covenant and his care with them. And they're afraid. They began to be afraid of God. And they were afraid of the giants, so they had to prioritize their fear. How many of you know you can reprioritize your fear? You 100% can. I am afraid of this and I am afraid of that, but what am I afraid of most? Oh, there's a good scripture. Where is it? I got to find it. Psalm 86, verse 11. Give me an undivided heart that I may fear your name. God. That one was just there so I could preach this message. So anyways, that you can reprioritize your fear. You do it all the time. I'm going to tell you a quick story. So when my son Philip, he's listening. Hi, Phil. He was 15. He was getting his permit test. He was at a DMV where they put him in this plexiglass little room in the middle of the DMV. I'm over here waiting for him to finish. And there's a door over here where people are walking in. And there's a little courtyard that I can see. Well, it was just shortly after the bombing. I don't know if it was 9/11 or whatever. But it was shortly after something when it was bombed. And I see this guy come in. And he's got a long bag, a gun bag. I recognize it as gun bag. He sits it on a stool right outside the door to the DMV. He opens the door, and I'm watching him, and he doesn't look safe. And I'm on the other side, and I'm like, And so it's scary, right? He's got a gun bag. He sets it down. He steps in the door, and he screams, everybody stop. And he said, I have a gun, but I think everybody heard bomb, right? Regardless of what he said, I'm standing over here. That's scary, huh? I saw the gun bag. I saw the guy walk in, and I'm like, oh, shoot. But you know what I see at that moment? my bear cub in the middle of the DMV. And so everybody stops and they freeze. And I take off running towards the gunman. And I see Phil in there, and he's like, oh, I'm so telling Dad. And I take off, and I'm like, nobody's running. Everybody stopped because I reprioritized my fear, because my fear of Philip getting hurt was worse than my fear of a guy shooting me. So I'm running as fast as this mama bear can run. And I want to tell you, I am raging with canine madness at that moment. And he goes out, and he grabs his gun. And when he turns around, he sees me. And I'm running and I'm screaming, what are you doing? Move, right? I'm screaming to everybody. And he sees me, and I have to believe he saw me and about 20 angels, because I don't think he was just afraid of me, but he sees me and he goes, oh, and he turns around and he runs. He runs. And everybody's like, oh my gosh, they call the police. They're looking for him. And I go to pick up Phil, and Phil looks at me and goes, I'm telling Dad. I'm like, you traitor, you're a traitor. Phil, you're a traitor. So we walked in the door, and I'm like, don't you dare. He walked in the door. He's like, Mom chased a gunman out of the DMV. I'm like, you are so not using my car. So anyways, I want to tell you that you can prioritize your fear and your feelings, because you do it all the time. So Caleb had a fear of the Lord, and there were some scary giants, and he chose to reprioritize the fear of the Lord. And that's where he made his decision that, hey, we should go in and take him, because we surely can. Anyways, people don't like that. So they tried to stone them. And when they tried to stone Joshua and Caleb, the glory fell on the tabernacle. And they're like, okay, well, maybe we'll let them live, right? Because at that point, the fear of the Lord became more important than the fear of Caleb and Joshua. So they reprioritized things, and they went, okay, we really fear God. Anyways, well, God can't bless the Israelites for they don't trust him. You got to trust God. Right? He wants to, but he can't. But he's pleased with the wholeheartedness of Caleb. So in Numbers 14, I'm going to start with verse 22. God says through Moses, not one of those people, who saw my glory and the signs I performed in Egypt and the wilderness, but who disobeyed me and tested me 10 times. It was the 10th time God was done. He said they all saw the glory. They did, right? They all saw the glory. Not one of them will ever see the land I promised on oath to their ancestors. No one who has treated me with contempt will ever see it. But because my servant Caleb has a different spirit and follows me wholeheartedly, I will bring him into the land he went to, and his descendants will inherit it. Whoa. Okay, so I got to do the middle part. Come on. All right, I'm going to do the middle part. I think I can do this in 1 minute or less. Ready? Go. So God forbids that anyone over the age of 20 can enter into the promised land. So he sends them back into the wilderness. This time they're going to walk around for 38 years, which makes a total of, guess what? 40. During that time, Caleb is silent. Caleb is completely silent. You don't hear anything about him, but he gets to watch the Israelites grumble and complain against the Lord. And God gives them deliverance over their enemies. And guess what? He even gives them defeat over a giant, King Og. And so Caleb gets to watch God's faithfulness, but Caleb gets to watch their continued rebellion and grumbling. Oh my gosh, that must have been hard, right? And so anyways, after a total of 40 years, all those people die off, and Moses dies off, and Aaron the priest dies off, and no one is left with the next generation but Joshua and Caleb. Gosh, I wish I was going to be Caleb at that time. And so anyways, Caleb is 80 years old, and he's the oldest person who is getting ready to enter the promised land. And God says to Joshua, who has become the leader, hey, take the next gen into the promised land. So Caleb once again gets to watch waters part, and he walks across the Jordan River on dry land into his promised inheritance. When he gets to the other side, guess what he gets to do? For 5 years, he has to fight. He's 80 years old. He's got 5 years, no less than 13 battles, starting with the very first famous one, when he gets to walk around a place for 7 years silent. My husband could have done that in a heartbeat. And then the walls fell down, and then he got to watch deliverance, and it was just like all the way from there. So anyways, after 5 years, they get to the place of the promised land where Joshua says, okay, I think we can all disperse. I'm going to send you each to your own land. And this is where the story picks up. All right, I think I got 44 seconds left on my goal. So anyways, that's a long time, 45 years. That's a long time. Caleb had to be so frustrated. Oh my gosh. Winston Churchill said, success is the ability to go from one failure to another with no loss of enthusiasm. And we're going to see that in Caleb. So anyways, Joshua's getting ready to give out the land. And Caleb comes in. And this is where the very first passage we read, where Caleb tells a story, it starts there. But we're going to pick it up in verse 10. Caleb says, okay, I did all this. Now then, just as the Lord promised, he's talking to all the leaders in Joshua, just as the Lord promised, he has kept me alive for 45 years since the time he said this to Moses while Israel moved about in the wilderness. So here I am today, 85 years old. I am still as strong today as the day Moses sent me out. I'm just as vigorous to go out to battle now as I was then. Oh, come on. I am just as strong today as 35 years ago when I accepted the Lord, maybe even more, because I've seen a few things. I've seen a few things. And so Caleb tells him, man, I am consistent. Right? Consistent. We've seen him with conviction. We've seen him with courage. And now we've seen him being consistent. He is 85 years old and he is talking to Joshua. And the last thing that we see is that he is going to be confident. I love this. So Caleb was not afraid to ask for his promised inheritance because he was confident. He was not afraid to ask for his inheritance. So basically, he says in Joshua 14:12, he says, I love this. It says, now give me this hill country, but right now I want you to say, now give me this mountain. What mountain is he talking about? The one he was talking about 45 years earlier, the one with all the giants. He's like, there's still giants in the land, and they're all looking at it. Can you imagine? They're all going, the giants are still up there. And Caleb's like, oh, yeah, I'm just as strong as I was. And give me that mountain. That day, you yourself heard that the Anakites, the giants, were there and their cities were large and fortified. But the Lord helping me, I will drive them out. Because again, Caleb doesn't just say, I'm the OG. Man, how many of you know that if you do not give the Lord opportunity to show himself strong on your behalf, the next generation will never know who he is? Oh my gosh, people as 1985, I want to tell you about. These kids need to see miracles in our life today. They need to see them today. Anyways, all right, so I have 44 seconds in my. He'll go, why do you have to do that? I'm like, because I said I would. So anyways, I'm going to tell the last part of this story in 44 seconds from that mountain. And then he says to Joshua, this city is mine. It's what? There's another land over there. I'm going to ask all you young people to step in my inheritance. Who's going to actually go take that land? So a person steps up. His name is Othniel. If you can, the next judge of Israel. And he rules the land in peace for guess how long? 40 years. 5 minutes. Total. All right. That's important. Woo, kids. But then he says, I'm going to invite you to step into my inheritance. Whoever takes that city, you can marry my daughter. And do it. You can do it. Young people, if I can do it, you can do it. I am 59 years old. If I can do it, please rethink what you're doing, please. So anyways, he invites them to step in. The interesting thing about this is that she goes to her husband and says, hey, go ask my dad. We need water for this land. We can't cultivate this land without water. So she's trying to get her husband, Othniel, the future judge, to ask her dad for something. And he comes up to her and he goes, daughter, what is it that you want? Culturally, she is not supposed to do this. But he's, oh, I love that. So she says, I need water. He says, I'll give you springs. I'll give you two, one here and one here. So I've given you land as a future, and I've given you the ability to cultivate your land. For the next generation, we need to give them things. We need to give them land, and we need to give them springs so that they can cultivate their land. And we need to give them a legacy that tells them that they can do it. But there is nothing coming. There's nothing coming. Study 2021, I believe, it was on cultivating resilience. I'm a nerd. I read all this stuff. In this study, it was all Gen Z. 25% of the Gen Zers that they surveyed said that they would identify themselves as anxious. 25% identified themselves as empowered. So these were the two outliers, anxious and empowered. Among other things, those who were anxious always or usually, didn't we see that in the 10 spies? Afraid to fail. anxious about the future. Those who were empowered always or usually feel able to accomplish their goals. Someone believes in me. Optimistic about the future. Oh, and I added one more because I love this. 63% of the kids that said they felt empowered said they are deeply cared for by someone around them. 63%. We saw this in the life of Caleb because Caleb knew that he was deeply cared about by the Lord. It also helps that his daughter felt deeply cared about, that his daughter felt like she could accomplish her goals. Ask me, daughter. Your dad is raging with canine madness. Ask me for anything. I believe in you. I believe in you. I believe in you. You can do it. Man, there's a preach in the life of Caleb. I want to tell you, if you're 20 years old, someone is being born today that needs to see the next 20 years of your life identifying you as a leader. So when they're 20, they can see you at 40 like Caleb, and out of 74,000 people, they can look at you and go, he's brave enough, he's a leader. If you're 40, there's a 20-year-old that desperately right now needs to know he can do it. She can do it. If you're 80, now give me this mountain. You still got things to do. And if you don't, how are they ever going to see? How are they ever going to see God's faithfulness in your life? I am 60 years old. I still have 3 big things I have to do. It scares my husband to death. I still have 3 big things that I have to do in my life. Now give me this mountain. I do it a little slower. It took me 2 minutes to get my computer open here. But it matters. Okay. It took me a total of 5 minutes, just under, to tell the story of the life of Caleb. But his legacy still affects me today. It will take someone 5 minutes to tell your whole life story. But how long is your legacy going to last? Oh, mine will last a long time. So I hang out with all these young people. Love them so much. And I want to show them, not that I am awesome, but that God is awesome. That God throughout my life never let me down. That God throughout my life was worthy of my trust. That his devotion to me never waned. That he was undivided in his heart for me. That he never changed his mind about me or the promises that he made me. And I want you to see God's faithfulness in my life. I need you to activate today. And I want to impart a Caleb anointing to you, that you would take on the mantle that others are watching. And if you're older, invite someone to step into your inheritance. Hey, you know what? I could totally do that. But you know what? You could do it. You go do it. Yeah. In just a minute, we're going to pray for your mountain. So this old lady can still walk through some of the wilderness areas that we're walking through and still believe. You know, it's interesting. The name Caleb doesn't actually mean dog or raging with canine madness anymore. If you go to look it up, you know what it'll mean? Faithful. You will change the meaning of your name from slavery to legacy. We're going to pray.